Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. Today is actually Sunday, August 20th, 2023. Doing a whole bunch of videos. So this may be a pre-recorded, maybe posted. Who knows where it's going to go? I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I haven't heard the story. All I've done is read an email. Have a couple out in Nevada who are experiencing exactly what you see behind me. Maybe. So we're going to hear their story, see what kind of records we can look at, because, really, that's all that matters is the record. So we're going to see what we can do to help these folks out. I've got actually a list of people to do videos with today. Yeah, probably a good day to do it since it's going to be 107 degrees in Houston, Texas. It's going to be blistering today. All right. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below. Participate in the chat. If you need to reach me, The Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. As always, thefearlessfloydshow.com is my website. The Fearless Floyd Show on every social media platform that you can think of. If I ever get time, now I'm going to go over to Spotify as well, expand my horizon. So with that, I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to pause this video until I get our guest or guests on. So hang on for a minute. And we're back with our guests, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and they're going to tell their story. And as they are relating their story to you guys, if there's anything specific I need to point out, I will pause and ask them a question to be more specific about their story or for more clarification. I want to thank them very much for being here. I really do appreciate people reaching out to me and wanting to share their stories. Of course, we're talking about Nevada, Utah, California, Arizona. There seem to be a lot of problems out there with corruption in the governments. We all know they're for-profit corporations. So with that, we'll lead into Nevada. Corrupt judge and prosecutor, allegedly. Let's hear the story. Go ahead. I'll digress.
First and foremost, my wife and I want to thank you very much, Fearless Floyd, and all to your listeners for taking the time to listen to what we have to say. My full name is Kimball Austin Sachs. The first name is like the piano, same spelling, but I go by Austin, my middle name. If anybody's interested in looking up our court case with the 8th Judicial District Court in Las Vegas, Nevada, the case number is C-19-343-2 for me, and then -1 for my wife. My wife will introduce herself. Huh?
And now I'll put that in the description below.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Floyd. My name is Cici. My Chinese full name is Yuxia Zhang. Yuxiazhang. I met my husband 6 years ago. So we have a very beautiful life before this case. We're looking for some help. I hope people can pay attention to our case and do some help for us. Thank you.
Okay, so just to mention, Floyd, in brief, what happened is that our son ate some food that didn't agree with him back in 2019, early 2019. The next day or that night, he had a fever. And then the next day, he got dizzy, fell to the ground. I was out of town. My wife called for paramedic help because she was worried that, he might remain unconscious. So they took him to St. Rose Sienna Hospital in Henderson, Nevada. They did a CAT scan, didn't find anything. Then they transferred him to UMC Children's Hospital in downtown Las Vegas. He was there briefly for about 6 days. So in a nutshell, and I'll really condense this, is that in the span of 6 short days, they turned him into a chemical junkie with anti-seizure chemicals that they never, ever verified the diagnosis properly because they never did an EEG. And then on the last day that he was there, I wasn't there. The biological father, I need to back up just by saying that.
That they clarify who they are when you say they gave him a cocktail.
Right. The hospital doctors gave our son
Which
a
hospital?
UMC Children's Hospital in downtown Las Vegas.
Okay.
That they gave him a MRI contrast dye with gadolinium. And gadolinium is element number 64, like gold and silver are elements. So it's in liquid form, and it's meant to enhance the image, the MRI contrast image. It's meant to enhance it, make it easier to read. And so I'm stepdaddy, and so the biological father and my wife were not given full disclosure about the dangers of the MRI contrast. And so what happened is, before the MRI, our son he was animated, he could walk, and he jumped up on me the night before the MRI. And then after the MRI, when I went to pick up my wife and son, that he was basically laying in the bed lifeless. When I picked him up, he urinated on me. I knew that they had damaged him. And so the other thing to say about this real quick is the doctors lied on the hospital records that he was released in good condition. And so I took my wife and I took him home. And then we, over the next 7 days, proceeded to heal him as best we could using safe and effective remedies, using naturopathic type medicine, and also worked with a naturopathic doctor who, that about 5 or 6 days later, we got him a Myers cocktail IV. And that's basically a liquid form of vitamin C and other vitamins that got our boy. There was a dramatic change after he got that Myers cocktail, because he, as the expression goes, he came back to life. He started walking in the naturopathic doctor's office again. So my wife was a witness, I'm a witness, the naturopathic doctor's a witness. And then, unfortunately, we wanted another Myers cocktail the next day, and then we couldn't get it because their office was closed. Long story short, we went to a place that the naturopathic doctor recommended for what they call these hangover type clinics. And so the doctors there at this hangover clinic refused to give our boy the gadolinium, or excuse me, the Myers cocktail. And then we went home. And then the next day, the guy at the clinic callously called CPS on us. And then the Boulder City Police came, and they kidnapped our son and took him back to the same hospital that jacked him up. And then we were distraught, so we contacted a bunch of people, including the sheriff and others. Nobody did anything to help us. And what they did then is they restricted us from seeing him. They chemically resurrected him in a matter of like 2.5 weeks. He was released to a halfway house, and then he went to a foster home. We lost custody. We were arrested for no less than 3 felony counts each of child neglect and abuse. And then we have been fighting this basically at justice court and district court level ever since. We did have some attorneys. They sold us down the river. Like, for example, the first set of attorneys, everybody knows O.J. Simpson. Well, we hired Gabriel Grasso, who represented O.J. Simpson in Las Vegas. And so Gabriel Grasso represented me at the justice court level, and then his son, Christopher Grasso, represented my wife at the justice court level. Long story short, they never gave us the state's notice of intent to indict. And they were given that piece of paper in the Justice City Court a month before. They never told us about it. I believe it's intentional. I 100% believe it's intentional what they did. And so we never got opportunity to testify at the grand jury, which would have changed things to the point I believe we never would have been indicted. And so we had another second set of attorneys where the one attorney wrote the writ of habeas corpus. And that basically went nowhere during the hearing, because it's our belief that the judge and the prosecutor are on the same team. They have the same paymaster. They couldn't care less about the truth or the facts. And to say it's good for business, right? Because they have some hidden secret bonds on us with their CUSIP numbers and God knows what else. But in any case, So we went pro se for a long time, Floyd. We were pro se for about 2 years. And then I exhausted pretty much every type of motion that a sane and rational and prudent person would file to a court, like motion to dismiss for lack of subject matter jurisdiction, motion to have the grand jury reconvene because we were not given adequate or reasonable notice. And that was one of the best motions that was ever submitted. And they completely farted on it, right? They couldn't care less. They just rubber stamp whatever the prosecutor wants to do. And then we, out of desperation, we have public.
Do this, okay? Was that a pro se motion or was that by representative counsel?
Pro se. We did a lot of pro se hearings, a lot of them.
Did you have a motion hearing, an actual proceeding? Or did you?
I'm sorry.
Did you have a motion hearing?
Yes, we had a lot of motion hearings. Yes, because we filed a lot of motions. So each time, on the paperwork at the top, you say hearing requested, and then they'll send you a notice of hearing, and then we do like a Zoom meeting like we're doing now, that we'd have a Zoom hearing, which I've been told that isn't even real, but we do the best we can under the circumstances. But
they're real. That's how they're now, by Zoom.
That's how they're doing business. But
pretty soon there's going to be, you're going to be like violating the law, and this little iPad's going to come flying up on you and start talking to you. Oh, you violated the law, blah, blah, blah. You need to pay up 50 credits. Takes off. You're like, oh man.
It's like something out of Judge Dredd, right?
Yeah, we live in the Jetsons or something. I'm sorry, I just want to put a little lightheartedness into this. Because this is so traumatic. So I looked up the product that you're talking about. If anybody out there have ever heard of this being misused through a misdiagnosis, because that appears to be the issue here, right?
Well, the misdiagnosis is related to what originally went back to it was a simple case of food poisoning, and the doctors misdiagnosed it as seizures. And again, they never did the proper diagnosis. So you got to understand these anti-seizure, what they call medications, this pharma is very strong psychoactive materials that even the naturopathic doctor told us they have a half-life of like at least a month or half a month. That's a long time, meaning when you stop taking it, it's still affecting you for a month or a half a month. And so what they're doing is they're getting the person, whether it's a child or an adult, chemically addicted to those anti-seizure chemicals. And the effects are devastating, because what happens is when the body metabolizes the chemical, when you read, if you take the time to read the contraindications, meaning the warnings from the manufacturers themselves, they will tell you very clearly that when it metabolizes, is that what some of the side effects can be what looks exactly like a seizure. So let's think about this for a minute. You're weaning off of it, and if you don't get your fix, you'll look like you're having another seizure. So it's like a designer drug. It's designed to scare the parents or even adults into like, oh my God, my kid is having another seizure. Yes, you're right. He's got to have his fix. He's got to have his chemicals. I mean, what I'm saying is if you can step back from it and look at what they're telling you, the whole thing is nefarious from beginning to end.
Absolutely. Big pharma. Yeah. They're not looking to cure anything. They're just looking to quell the symptoms. But as we know, the side effects generally outweigh the symptoms. Most of this stuff. Wow.
Well,
that's a scary story for anybody.
Yes, well, that's one part of the equation, and then the other part of the equation is to speak to the gadolinium ever so briefly. So, I did a joint declaration. It was 195 pages with 9 exhibits. I gave it to my attorney, the second attorney, and he told me at the time, he goes, Austin, he says, I would expect Judge Hardy to tell Ms. Joby, like, what do you really want to be bringing this case here? Because it was so compelling to say, look, it's the gadolinium that caused our son's apparent symptoms that had the appearance of child neglect and abuse. So what is that? You have cachexia, which is a wasting away of the body. You have weight loss. You have encephalopathy, which is inflammation of the brain. and then you have stiffness of joints and muscles. And so I included no less than 3 peer-reviewed medical journal articles in the joint declaration submitted to the court, submitted to the prosecutor, and all they did was completely ignore it, 100%. And so what I'm saying is, even when you provide irrefutable proof, they couldn't care less because they're running a business. They don't care. So this is unbelievably destructive. Yes, that's what we were charged with. NRS 200.508. So let's look at the elements. So this is interesting if you keep this up for a moment. The one element, and we talked about this with a lot of gurus, Floyd, is that where it says a person who willfully causes, that is an element of that statute. And so we didn't willfully do anything other than demonstrate and show with verifiable receipts totaling over $1,100 that we had nothing but our child's best interest at heart. And also we were acting responsibly, and we were using remedies, like I said, that were safe and effective. The same cannot be said of what these doctors in the children's hospital were doing, because everything that they wanted to give our child had all kinds of side effects, and some of them were life-threatening. So that's really important to point out and reinforce this point, is that the contraindications, some of them are life-threatening. So they're giving a child a chemical or a substance that could kill them. Now, do you think for a moment that the doctors care if they kill our child? I believe the answer is a resounding no. And why is that? Because they have this thing called insurance. So they don't care if they kill our son. They don't care. They're running a business. The hospital, just like the court, is a for-profit business. This is how ugly it is. And you pull back the curtain, you're going to find out what I'm saying is true if you do your research. And I encourage everybody to do the research, but these are for-profit institutions, and they don't have any scruples at all. They are really what's the word?
Company people.
Yeah.
I hate to put it that way, but that's yeah. There's
Now,
no compassion. You have to understand who most of these people are when you look at them from the district attorney's office. They weren't the best and the brightest. They weren't the best looking, the most popular. They're most average or below average. They didn't get recruited by the top law firms across the country after they got out of law school and got their bar license. So they had to go work for the district attorney's office. So now they have a chip on their shoulder. Now they have a little authority that they've never had in their entire life. And as they learn to wield it, they become sociopaths. And that's all they care about, is accumulating years in prison. I got 35 today, or I got 75, or I got 3 life sentences, whatever. It's really a sick and depraved commentary on the judicial system nationwide on every level. Doesn't matter whether it's city, county, state, or federal level. We're seeing it on the federal level with the whole Trump and Biden thing, and they've totally got everything backwards. I'm not saying Trump's a choir boy angel and pin a medal on him and give him sainthood or anything like that, because I've clearly established for a fact that he has violated the law multiple times. But that's how you operate in New York as a real estate developer. You have to violate the law because you got to grease the palms to get everything done, because the mob runs most of the stuff. But anyway, as I'm reading this, so we have 1 and then we have 2.
something I want to mention while you're looking at that, Floyd, is that we asked for through a motion what's called a bill of particulars, and they refused. The court refused. The prosecutor refused to give us a bill of particulars. So for the viewers out there, they not know what.
Have you thought about this? Filing a countersuit?
We thought about it. The thing is this: I would need help from a paralegal to do the paperwork, right? I mean, it's.
I'm going to read it.
Actually,
I'm going to read it to you right here. a person who is responsible for the safety or welfare of a child and who permits or allows that child to suffer unjustified physical pain or mental suffering as a result of abuse or neglect, or to be placed in a situation where a child could suffer physical pain and or mental suffering as a result of abuse and neglect. It's just, blah, blah, blah. It's just a repeat. Okay. But what you did is the child was taken out of your custody in the welfare of the hospital and doctors. Boom. Here you go. There's your countersuit. And I would sue the hospital and the doctors. I'll find out everybody that was involved in that. I would get his entire medical records. I don't care if they're a nurse, anesthesiologist, radiologist, everybody. Because they don't want to deal with that. And if you start deposing them, they're going to come clean. Somebody's going to snitch on somebody else to get out of it.
Well, to do the paperwork, it would be, if any of the viewers are listening to this, I would really appreciate some help with that, because in other words, it's okay to speak in generalities, but when the rubber meets the road, sometimes it's very hard to get the very specific help you need. Like, for example, my wife and I may have to get what's called standby counsel for their show trial, because we don't know the first thing about properly how to subpoena somebody, or how to get the state court to pay for the gadolinium medical experts, say at their expense. So we don't know how to do that. And I know if I ask the court, they're going to be like, don't ask us, ask the standby counsel. You know what I'm saying, Floyd? It's like, they're just going to put it back on us.
Let's go back and address the standby counsel. You don't want standby counsel. Okay. You want anything, an appointment from them, you want a legal translator. I need somebody to translate this legal mumbo jumbo. And then when you guys change jurisdictions, in the middle of a sentence, I need to know when that happens.
All right. So you're saying I can say, as the expression goes, petition the court through a motion to get a legal translator, and then they're not going to play dumb.
I need somebody to represent me, because I can present myself. But when you're up there talking Latin and then talking those legal words that to me in common everyday layman's terms means something completely different, well, I don't comprehend the words coming out of your mouth because I'm not legally trained. I need a translator. Your Honor, leave to file this motion out of time. You know what leave means?
To leave is to pause and then come back after you've done whatever it is you asked to.
Permission. That's what it means, permission. So, and you would know that. You think it means something else, totally something else, and it doesn't. And there's all kind of words in Black's Law Dictionary that are like that. And you look them up and go, like monster. You're a monster. I'm a monster. Every human being is a monster. Do you know that?
I've heard that before, yes.
And they consider us a thing.
Right.
What we are to them, a thing. Nothing more.
Floyd, it might be instructive to just pull up two other NRSs, since you have the NRS 200.508, which is what we've been charged with. Again, 3 felony counts each.
Right.
Is you pull up NRS 200.5085. That's very instructive to show the viewers that is one of the defenses that we've been using all this time. And once again, the court, they couldn't care less. And the NRS 200.5085 gives parents the right to what they call non-medical remedial care.
Right.
As long as you're acting in good faith and the care is recognized and permitted by the state of Nevada, that you cannot be held to child neglect or abuse charges. So that is part of Nevada law. Again, it's NRS 200.5085. It's just a little bit further down in that NRS. So
yeah.
You want chapter.
This I love to read table of contents.
Oh, I did the same thing with the NRSs, and I found a lot of interesting statutes, like for example, like even just something as simple as coercion, like they're coercing my wife and I every single time that we have to participate in one of their kangaroo court hearings. And we do get it on the record pretty much every time in our opening statement saying things like, I am here under force, duress, and threat and coercion. And it's like, they're just yawning. They don't seem to, they don't care. And I guess one of the reasons why they don't care is because we haven't rebutted, which we're going to at a future hearing, is to rebut their presumptions. My understanding from my research is that these courts operate under Roman civil law, and there's 12 presumptions. And if you don't do it in writing and orally, the court is going to treat you just as what you referred to as earlier, as a thing, that we are a dead corpse. We're a dead entity. We're a corporate fiction. We are our straw man, our all capital name, and that they actually cannot do, say, business with a living man or living woman. That's my understanding, Floyd.
They, and they're just not trying to hear that. The problem is you went in there at the very beginning with represented counsel, and they already know you're mentally incompetent, because that's what you're telling them. When you have to have an attorney represent you, you've already been presented to the court. So you need an attorney, or we can appoint one for you. You tell them no or yes. As soon as you say yes, you tell them I'm mentally incompetent and cannot handle my own legal affairs. I have to have somebody else do it for me. So that's what you told the court, and the court's been treating you that way ever since. Even though you went back pro se, they knew you don't know what the hell's going on. They know you have no idea what you're doing, because you're not following their playbook. Here's their playbook right here on the screen. Everything you need to battle that case is right in here. These are all your writs, certiorari, denominated by writ of review. I mean, yeah, this is a gold mine. This is actually better than Texas as far as how it's laid out and how to file it. Prohibition, habeas corpus. Oh, yeah. Now, there's something that you probably don't know about. It's called an interlocutory appeal. That means
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you can appeal some event or something that happened during court, a ruling, a judge not recusing himself, all kind of things. And basically that takes it up to the next level, and then you can continue to litigate that all the way to the United States Supreme Court through the state and then federal courts. Proceedings upon disability. We have that same one here in Texas. And when I called them out on that one, they dismissed my writ of habeas corpus. We're trying to hear it. So that's all writ of habeas corpus. Petitions for pretrial relief. Yeah, I'm sure you haven't followed any of this.
I've read a number of these NRSs, but it's been mostly geared towards citing the four laws that, in my mind, protect us and what we did. So just to state those ever so briefly, there's two NRSs on the books for what's called informed consent. And so informed consent obviously means, at least to a reasonable, prudent person, is that you get informed about a medical procedure and you either consent or you don't consent. In the case where I didn't consent and my wife didn't consent, is that they pulled out the big guns that involve CPS immediately. So they violated our rights right there, right off the bat.
Right.
And then again, I mentioned this NRS 200.5085, which is the right to non-medical remedial care. And then the last one is NRS 126.036, which says parenting is a fundamental right, that parents have a liberty interest in their children, and that parents have the right to the care, custody, and management of their child, and that is a fundamental right. So these are considered sacred rights. When you look up in Black's Law Dictionary or even Bouvier's, is that these fundamental and liberty interest rights are liberty and fundamental rights are sacred rights. In other words, it's like it's God-given. It's unalienable, meaning you can't waive it, and it's something that they can't take away. But obviously, yeah, that's it. And then, and yeah, 126.036. That's the one. Yeah, yeah. If you look at that first one, that first yeah, care, custody, and management. Now, what the one judge did, she says, well, you didn't cite the whole thing, Mr. Sachs, and then she goes to paragraph number 2, but they 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 haven't been able to show on the record that that we committed any say crimes. And the other thing to say about this is my wife and I did an affidavit, and we signed it under penalty of perjury and notarized it, that the grand jury proceeding by Ms. Michelle Joby was completely fraudulent because she never revealed exculpatory evidence that was on the record. She allowed facts not in evidence, and she allowed perjured testimony. We brought all this to light, and once again, it was completely disregarded. So the only thing I've been doing, I guess you could say, Floyd, is trying to make a massive record of what amounts to a RICO operation, that this court is a for-profit RICO operation, and that my filings are extensive along with my wife's. In other words, we have many hundreds.
Yeah, I totally get what you're trying to do, but you're picking on the wrong person. You're trying to pick on the court. Court's just doing its legal machinations. You need to file a countersuit, criminal, and I would put state of Nevada and the hospital and every person that when you got to the hospital and you gave your child to whomever, they took your child behind those doors, and you cannot go in the same room with your child while they're doing all these tests and injections and whatever. Your custody and control, your parental rights were surrendered at that time. Mm-hmm. And then they became liable under number 2 of that particular Nevada statute that they indicted you under.
Now, I understand what you're saying with respect
to is the court doesn't know that that you surrendered it to that child, that your rights stopped at that time. They're just assuming, the presumption is you retained rights at all time. You had custody at all time. But when in fact, that was not the case at all. That's why you need to get the medical records from the hospital. You need to get all the notes, admission time, all that.
Floyd, my understanding is whenever you go against the doctor, you typically, there's 2 stipulations. You have to get a medical expert to sign off that they actually did do something wrong. In other words, it's like going to the court, say, mother, man,
this isn't medical malpractice is a civil matter. This isn't civil. This is a criminal matter.
All right. Okay.
What you're doing is flipping the script. You're telling them, no. I'm not the party that should be charged here. These are the real culprits. And here's my evidence to back it up. So basically what you're going to be doing is writing an indictment, just like they wrote against you. And you're going to be backing it up with facts. Here's my facts. Here's my son's medical records. This is the time and date when I admitted him. He was surrendered to this nurse. And I was in the waiting room the entire time for the next however many hours, 8 hours.
Floyd, is there a book you can recommend or website that I can go to actually get practical templates that I can just kind of piggyback off of to get that counter suit off the ground?
Well, you go back to this new version. I'm looking for the child neglect. What statute was that?
It was 200.508.
Person. Yeah, see, they've got you charged under number 1 right here.
Yes.
This is 1A, 1, 2, and section B, 1, 2, and then it goes to number 2. That's the doctors and the hospitals right there. All this covers them.
Now, while we're doing this, they're still going to move forward against us in their case against us. So how would that work, Floyd?
Because you have proof, and now you have a list of witnesses that you're going to put on the stand. And if you have them pre-deposed under oath before you even go to trial, now you have their testimony, previous testimony. So when you get them into trial, you can, of course, you can put them on voir dire, which is outside the trier of facts purview, and pin them down on an answer that they may or may not have perjured testimony. That's what you're trying to do is, like I told this, my client the other day, your best offense is to have their best case. You put their best case together against you. And if they don't have a case, well, who actually are the guilty parties? Well, I need to let them know who the guilty parties are. I need to present the real facts. I need to get this investigation flipped over to somebody else and off me. How do I do that? Well, I have to have relevant facts, documented proof, and present to them. Once you get all this and you establish your hearing, you're going to go in there and tell them, and you're going to read this right here. You're going to read the one they're charging you with. A person who willfully causes a child who is less than 18. And you're going to tell them flat out, I didn't willfully do anything. I willfully gave possession and custody and guardianship of my child to the hospital and to the doctors and to the medical staff. And they took my child and they did all these things to him unknowingly to me. They had custody. So let's go back. You can't meet that element of the offense, and I'll prove it. All I got to do is get these witnesses up here, which already have their testimony. And if you can afford it, you're going to have their testimony transcribed. So you actually have a printed out written transcript that you can hand right to the prosecutor. Here, you want to read it? Take it home with you. Put it in your bathroom. Use it for that kind of material. And then you're going to get over here and you go, all right, here we go. I went to the hospital. I gave my child medical staff. A person who is responsible for the safety or welfare of my child. It's there black and white. You've charged the wrong people. You need to charge people at the hospital, if anybody at all. And that's how you have to let it out to them. You have to let them know, now I completely comprehend and understand the proceedings of what's really going on. And I'm not going to shut up. Even if you have to file a civil RICO in state or federal court, and then make state of Nevada, the prosecutor, the judge, the hospital, all those other witnesses, to put them in there. And then you become a private attorney general, and you have much more authority and power, same as any state or federal attorney general. You can issue subpoenas, do depositions, the whole 9 yards.
Something very important I need to share with you, Floyd, is that
you have a lot of alternatives.
And thank you for that.
Yeah, but the issue is they really don't quite comprehend, the back end of it. Everything that you did to bring your child back, to get them to have some cognitive ability and functionability. They may not know any of that. They may not know, the whole history of the chemical used, and that it could cause detrimental effects to a child, and it probably shouldn't even be used on a child. From what I've read, looks like it's too toxic for somebody under 18 who hasn't fully developed.
it was very well documented, Floyd, everything, including the treatments that we did in the court filings, very well documented. So again, they disregarded it. But something very important to mention is about about a year ago, year and a half, something like that ago, I researched another part of Nevada law regarding what's called a citizen's arrest, because I was disgusted with the fact that Ms. Joby, the former prosecutor, who's now been replaced by Dina Renetti, is that Ms. Joby was saying unbelievably incredulous things like, oh, Mr. Sachs should not be allowed to impeach Chesnia Grayson, the chief nurse, when she committed perjury. She flat out lied. This chief nurse said that I was removed from the facility, meaning UMC Children's Hospital, which was complete bunkum. And so I did what I could consider a citizen's arrest. In other words, there's an NRS for citizen's arrest. I followed it to the T. I did an affidavit. My wife did an affidavit. I called up the Las Vegas police and said, who I send this to? They gave me the runaround. Long story short, where we live now in Arkansas, we went to the local police who initiated it because the Las Vegas police gave us the complete runaround. And so the Arkansas local police sent the request to the Las Vegas police. It was received. It was assigned to a detective. And then the detective told me in person and in writing, both. He said, when I took this to the prosecutor, she said, or when I took this to the prosecutor's office, they said, we're not going to prosecute this. So it's like, oh, that's lovely. So perjury is condoned. Perjury is condoned in Nevada. And even though you have an affidavit and you're saying that I am willing to go to jail for what I'm saying, that I'm subject to the penalties of perjury, that nothing doing, Mr. Sachs. The public defender or the public prosecutor's office, they're not going to do nothing. It just ended there, and I tried to get a bunch of supervisors. In other words, just keeping up the chain of command, and everybody basically ignored it, Floyd. So I guess what I'm asking in a roundabout way is, in having given you a real life tangible example, is if I initiate what you're suggesting, and I realize there's more than one way to skin the cat here, but I really do like your idea, is that it seems to me what's going to happen is the same thing, Floyd. In other words, I'm going to do a hell of a lot of work, and I'm going to spend my time and my money. And what will happen is when it gets to the point where it's supposed to be referred to the public prosecutor's office, as they're basically going to do what they've done to me on everything, is fart on it. In other words, they're going to do nothing with it.
I really don't know that much about the federal courts in Nevada.
This is state. We're dealing with state court, Floyd. This is the state district.
So you could file it in federal court. You don't have to file state court. That's what I'm saying. You get in a different jurisdiction.
See, this is where I could use, if there's any listeners that are paralegals, please contact me, and I'll give Floyd my email address, but I could even just say it right now if it's okay. Is it okay for me to say my email?
Oh, you can put it out here. Yeah, absolutely. You can put your phone
my email's real easy. The letter K is in kilo, and then Austin, like Texas, AUSTIN, last name Sachs, SACHS. So it's kaustensachs@gmail.com. If any viewer is a paralegal, or you know how to initiate what Floyd is recommending, that would be awesome and much appreciated. And I'll try to compensate you for your time, because we're just really putting it out there in the universe. We want the help. We want this criminal RICO operation and its color of law actors doing business as the 8th Judicial District Court to get out of our lives. Because Floyd, I mean, my family and I've talked about this. They're like worse than a mafia. They just don't ever leave you alone. They're belligerent. Everything that you want to do as a man and woman to try to get remedy is always like time consuming or expensive or both. It's like it's very hard to get the right information for the remedy. So like I said, unless I can get some help with the paperwork, I like I said, my sneaking suspicion is the same thing's going to happen, Floyd, is when it gets to the point where it would be put in front of the prosecutor or prosecutors, their office, is they would say, there's no way we're going after these doctors because the doctors are protected class, don't you know? I mean, let's think about it, right? The lawyers, the attorney and attorneys, they're protected class because they're officers of the court, right? How often do they turn on one another? And then as far as MDs, they look at it like, whoa, they
Scott,
have a high social
England,
status, right?
7 newborn babies.
Pardon?
A nurse just got convicted in the England for killing 7 newborn babies. So that's not true. They're in a different class, but yes, they can be held accountable for their actions. Problem is most people don't try to hold them accountable for the actions because they haven't done as much research as you have. And to address these, governmental personnel, just to give you a general terminology, they don't understand that it's nothing personal, it's all business, because they take it personal. So whenever you kind of jug at them, but you're doing it because of their title and not them, they're taking it personally. So they hold those grudges and they don't forget. Very petty. Most of the people in there are programmed heavily by their supervisors to ignore things. Actually, I went to a alumni barbecue yesterday at my friend's barbecue joint, and he was closing up, and a guy showed up that graduated years after me. He was a former Harris County Sheriff's deputy, and from 94 to 2000, I don't know, 6 or something like that, 11 years, I think he said. He was telling me all this stuff, and I said, well, you probably don't know about the bonds on the backside of the criminal cases, do you? And he goes, oh yeah, I know about those. I'm like, what? He goes, oh yeah, I know about those. He goes, I used to read those cases. I go, so you were intellectually curious and wanted to know why things were the way they were. He says, oh yeah, I dug into all that. I'd read people's cases and ask them about their cases and why, and I was just like, wow. So some of them really actually do know what's going on. They just don't want to do anything about it. So I gave him my card and said, hey, anytime you want to come on the show and talk about your little cop stories, I'm more than welcome. Come on. So they know what's going on.
Right.
Problem is they get you over a barrel to where, you're broke, destitute, desperate, worn out, tired, and they just take advantage of you. And it's a process of attrition. See who can last the longest. And when you're actually, obviously you are out on bond, but if you're not on bond, they have this thing called resets where, and they especially do this to big cases, especially death penalty cases, where they want to break the defendant, and they'll just run you resets day after day after day after day after day for like 2 or 3 weeks, where you get no sleep. All you're eating are sandwiches out of a paper bag, sleeping on concrete floors, holding cells. So after you do that for 2 or 3 or 4 days in a row, you're beat to hell. You're mentally out of there, physically out of there, and that's how they break you. And you just don't want to even do that no more. 2 or 3 weeks, you're just done. He's like, I want some sleep, I want some food. I'm just done. What's it going to take to make this go away? And that's one of their little tools in their tool belt. So yeah, I've seen just everything. But yeah, you need to bring this back to their attention and point the arrows at the guilty parties. Take it off you.
Well, along those lines. Well, along those lines, Floyd, it would be a good segue to bring up the fact that there's someone that mentioned to me personally over the phone, and he's, like you could say, maybe he's another type guru. Floyd is that he says, look, they're obviously for-profit corporations, so he says you have to get their DUNS number, you have to get the QSIP number of the bond that's associated with me, say my all caps name or my social security number. and that you also have to get a copy of their oath. And he said none of them have their oath anymore, apparently, and that you referred to somebody who's maybe in a higher position. Now, he mentioned the JAG, but I take issues with referring to the JAG, meaning the Army JAG, because I'm thinking to myself, what jurisdiction does the Army JAG have over a state district court? So that part of it sound hokey to me, but
Are
there
they
might be.
a zip code in their address?
Yeah, well, the court positively does. Yeah, and they would have it like when they register what they're done. So you're saying that's the key?
Zip codes are military jurisdictions. You better believe it.
Okay, all right. So maybe that's the connection I could make before. So thank you for that. So that might be another avenue. The other thing to ask is, might you speak to as far as a remedy with my wife and I, taking into the context of a public versus private settlement? In other words, what should we know or what should we hear?
What should you what and what should you what?
What should we know about a public versus a private settlement? In other words, what is it? What are the pros and cons of each? And is there one, say, better over the other, given that we've been through the mud for so long now with this court for over 4 years?
Who are the parties?
Pardon?
Who are the parties?
Well, the parties listed on every single electronic filing, it says the state of Nevada versus, say, me, and then for my wife, she gets her version.
So rephrase the question.
Is there any remedy to be had by taking this matter into the private?
If you're not guilty, no. If you're guilty, yeah, that's a way to go settle it privately and not publicly.
Okay.
But
All right.
you're absolutely 100% not guilty, actually innocent, being wrongly prosecuted. You feel on just a standard of travesties, one right after another, and you not knowing what to do at the right time and place, because now you would do things differently at the beginning because you're more knowledgeable and experienced. However, hindsight's 2020, of course. But now, like I've explained to you, you need to start anew. You need to step away from everything that you've done and rebuild the case. You need to, because you're defending yourself now and your wife. So you need to do all the work. You're going to have to do the heavy lifting. It's not really going to be that difficult if you have some direction. I don't know what the let's see. Civil RICO. See if they have that available.
Well, I can look that up and see what I can find.
Well, I want to see if it corresponds with the federal, because generally, like Georgia and New York both adopted the federal RICO statutes. Georgia,
Yeah.
not word for word, but New York almost word for word. Show apartments. Yes, that which should be very interesting, being Nevada is a gambling state, especially with the mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the RICO was originally written for. I'm missing this. Bridges to civil veterans. Miss it.
Just to mention this while you're looking for that, Floyd. So when we fired the public defenders, we also requested a continuance. The continuance was granted. So the show trial is currently scheduled for March of 2024. It's been pushed out many, many times. And I also asked, I made an inquiry, does it matter how old this thing gets? And they're like, no, they're like, even when we were coming up with a date to schedule the new trial date, the prosecutor we're dealing with now is, she said, oh, I can't do it in February because I've got this case that's 7 years old. I'm like, okay, so they have an endless amount of resources, apparently. Endless. They never run out of money or anything else. And I mean, it's just
you're fighting a $50 million law firm with unlimited personnel and unlimited funds.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I already know. I've battled them. And it's no freaking fun. I mean, I've literally run out of typing paper and had to use the wrapper paper off toilet paper rolls to handwrite carbon copy motions to the United States Supreme Court. I used to actually have those because whenever an instrument is run through the United States Supreme Court and returned to you, it goes through a chemical process showing that way they know that they're authentic and been run through the Supreme Court clerk's office. Yeah. I've done some crazy stuff in the legal world. I think I'm looking.
Floyd, isn't it also say another road to go down? Isn't it true to say that when these officers of the court, i.e., the judge, the prosecutor, the attorneys, the court recorder, reporter, and the clerk of the court, when they commit fraud, that any of their decisions are null and void, and also when they commit fraud, that they don't have the protection of immunity? Are those fair statements?
Repeat them. The last one, I would say yes.
Right. So if they commit fraud, their decisions are null and void, meaning the decision of the judge.
Yeah, it vitiates everything. Yeah. Let's see. It is unlawful for a person. This is Rico, who with criminal intent received any proceeds delivered directly or directly racketeering activity. Invest proceeds. Yeah. To control the enterprises. See, a lot of that's property. It deals with money.
Right. And it would probably be pretty difficult for us to prove that they took any say nefarious funds, that even with the say the hidden bonds that they're working with or profiting from or benefiting from, that it's going to be really tough unless we had an insider, and who's just going to give up that information, right? They're not going to want to lose their job, so forth down. So that's probably a tough nut to crack. The other thing that say my wife wanted to ask is, we had mentioned at the time, and so it's a moot point, but we could still ask you the question. Say if we do have a show trial, that the idea being is that we would want our son to testify, but we absolutely do not want to bring him back into the state of Nevada because we don't want Nevada CPS getting their hands on our boy ever again, that we would just do a video deposition. Is that something that you would recommend?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or even do a Zoom from live from an attorney's office, somebody, you know, that's a court official. Even you can even do it from a notary's office in Arkansas.
Ah, that's good. Right.
Yep. And he can testify over Zoom
Okay.
and get a certificate from the Secretary of State for the notary prior to. That way, you know, you've already vetted the bona fides of the notary that they are actually a certified, licensed, commissioned notary public for the state of Arkansas.
Okay. Yeah, the idea being is that if the jury would see that, you know, our boy is, you know, safe, healthy, happy, so forth and so on, it's like, why do you want to punish parents that didn't do anything wrong? And I mean, the whole thing is this, Floyd. I mean, like I said, they lied about the discharge condition of our son. It clearly says on the records he was released in good condition. Well, we have the benefit through the police detective, who is otherwise a massive buffoon, a Christopher Slack. And I'm saying your name for the record, Christopher Slack, because you are a buffoon. You never did an investigation. You should be arrested. I would love to see you indicted. I'm going to see that I can get you indicted, sir. In any case, he got the hospital surveillance record from the hospital of me, daddy, carrying the broken boy out. You can see us in the elevator. The boy looks lifeless. And so that is, say, proof enough for any reasonable, prudent person to see that he wasn't talking, he wasn't walking on his own, he wasn't animated, that he sure as hell was not released in good condition.
Right.
And then it just went downhill from there, right? Because he was severely affected by the gadolinium. And as we stated earlier, you know, when you have any human being, whether it's an adult or a child, that is affected by encephalopathy and cachexia and weight loss and stiffness of the joints and muscles, you got somebody who's got some major problems. And the interesting thing is, for all the viewers out there, if you want to know how bad gadolinium is, just look at the videos on Gina Norris, who's Chuck Norris's wife. And there's pictures and videos where she's saying her fingers are like all curled up like this, like, in other words, they're clamped, like that stiffness of joints and muscles, and how she couldn't swallow, and they had to give her IVs to keep up her nutrition. And so, you know, again, it's like it's a carbon copy of what happened to our son on a milder level. And that we were very proactive and got him a Myers cocktail as soon as we could. So again, it shows that we were acting in good faith. And everything, like I said, Floyd, in our documents, the most important documents have all been notarized and signed under the penalty of perjury, is that it falls on deaf ears. It's like they just keep trucking along as if we said nothing. And it's like, well, this is utter madness. I mean, this is insanity. And the word you used before, you know, is very say apropos, is like you're dealing with psychopaths. So, but in spite of all that, you know, we're racking our brains for like, what is the bloody remedy? There has to be, say, maybe not necessarily the silver bullet, but maybe a couple silver bullets. So we've identified a couple of them, right? Is maybe there's some fruit from the tree to be born, where we go ahead and do a countersuit. Maybe, who knows? But I can't get away from the fact, like said Lloyd, is that the probability of the prosecutor moving forward, because it's unfortunate, because they are the gatekeeper, are they not? Right? The prosecutor is going to be the gatekeeper and say, no, we are not going to bring charges against these doctors or nurses. I mean, isn't that fair to say, Floyd?
It's supposed to be that way.
All right. So we have that. We possibly can get their DUNS and QSIP number if, again, maybe one of the viewers, my wife and I are appealing to all the viewers out there. If you know any man or woman on this planet that they can get us the DUNS number, and I tried to get the DUNS number, what I'm saying is I want you to know the lengths I've gone to. I've contacted the court clerk, not once, not twice, maybe about 5 or 6 times, saying I want this DUNS number. Now, what I haven't done yet up to this point is file a FOIA request, right? So maybe it'll come to that, but even then, they may not give it to me. But I'm after the DUNS number of this court, the 8th Judicial District Court of Las Vegas, Nevada, and the QSIP number for the security bonds for my wife and I, because it will show that they are a for-profit business. And then the other thing is to get the all the oath of office for the judge and the prosecutor. So I think all these things would be very instructive as far as showing that they are a for-profit business and they're committing fraud, and that we should at that point be able to either get them indicted or bring criminal charges against them for the fraud that they're committing. So I mean, wouldn't that be, say, another intelligent road to go down?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I don't know how much more time, money, energy, you know, how much gas you have left in the tank to keep going. You know, what you want to do is try to, you know, I don't know how many hurdles you're going to have to get over to get their attention, to get them to, you know, respond and turn everything in the direction that you want it to go and needs to go. So yeah, you know, when it comes to litigation, you kind of want to pick your battles in the war, because sometimes battles will expend all your time, money, and energy, and you're not fighting the war anymore. You're over here fighting this damn battle that really has nothing to do with the main issue, what you're trying to deal with. But now you're sidetracked and all your energy is dealing with this garbage, basically. They love to do that, throw stuff at you to keep you occupied. Hey, look over here, look over here, look over here. So you have to be aware of that. But you want to, when you get over that first hurdle, hopefully they recognize it and things will change then. So you don't have to continue to try to, you know, get across these hurdles to get your point across to them to open their eyes.
Well, there's a very interesting thing I need to relate to you and the viewers, and that is I've been studying trust law, and my understanding is that these courts and the government are set up as trust. So obviously there's three parties to a trust. You have the, say, the one who originates it, what is it, the grantor and the executor, and then you have the trustee and you have the beneficiary. And so what the courts are trying to do is they're trying to, by their hidden presumptions, is make me the trustee who is liable for all the debts and obligations, as where I am in fact the beneficiary and need to refute their presumption. Now, what I did during the last hearing is I did attempt to do that very thing by saying, I said, do you have any evidence to show that I'm not the decedent legal estate? And that prosecutor, do you have any evidence to show that I'm not the decedent legal estate? So they both played stupid, meaning the judge and the prosecutor played stupid, saying, we don't know what the decedent legal estate is. I said, how can that be? You went to law school, and in the case of the judge, you went to apparently judge school. I said, I'm going to ask the question for the second time. And so at one point I said, well, I appoint I said, I appoint the court to be the trustee. Now, this is the interesting thing, Floyd, is because I've been told this before. Whenever you're over the target, they want to change the subject real quick like. So she said in response to me saying, hey, I appoint the court to trustee. She says, she kind of paused for a minute. She goes, no, I don't accept being the trustee. And then she immediately got onto something else, Floyd. So I think I might have been over the target, like I said, because this is something that has only come to my attention recently, insofar as understanding the dynamics of what we're up against, that it's all contracts and that it's trust law, and a trust is meant to divide the title. So again, the court, or really the court, whether you want to say it's the judge or the prosecutor, they are, one of them is the executor, and then one of them is the trustee, and then I'm the beneficiary. So I'm going to do my best to, again, get that on the record again and get them to admit, say, the fraud that they're committing. But I think that might be another way to go. But I wanted to bring that for the benefit of you and the viewers, if you didn't know that there's guys like David E. Robinson who've written books called Be the One to Execute Your Trust, that they may want to check out, because that comes highly recommended from a guru. He goes by the name of KL, and he's been on some other radio shows. But it tends to make a lot of sense when you start reading about how trusts operate and the telltale signs. So again, I'm going to challenge that and get them to basically admit on the record that, you know, they have no evidence to show that I'm not the beneficiary. So if I'm not the trustee, then they can't assign the debts and liabilities. And have you ever heard, Floyd, maybe you've heard this. My understanding from my research, again, it could be wrong, I admit that, is that the prosecutor brings her checkbook to the court because she's the one who has to settle the accounts. If she is in, say, if she's placed with the responsibilities of the trustee. So do you know if there's any truth to that?
Uh, how much of that I can actually verify? Um, some of it, I can say that without getting real specific with it.
Then the other follow-up to that, Floyd, would be what information or evidence has been come across your way or been corroborated by others that they are in fact operating as trusts, and that what they're trying to label the defendant is really the prosecutor, and they're trying to make me the dupe, right? That they're trying to make me the trustee when I'm the beneficiary. So in other words, as the beneficiary, I get all the benefits and none of the liabilities.
Yeah, it should work that way, but a lot of times it doesn't. Um, yeah, the whole thing's just, upside down.
Well, we're doing what we can during this hearing, saying to sharpen our focus, to focus more on these issues of not accepting the role as the trustee, and also to challenge in personam jurisdiction, aka in-person jurisdiction. Because, say, I'll give you a very good recent example. We asked the prosecutor for where is the evidence on the record now, and not theoretically, that we have violated NRS 171.010 and NRS 171.020, where, Floyd, it makes specific reference to a person. Well, I'm sure you realize this, that a person is like a legal definition, and it doesn't really include a man or woman. So I put in one of my motions, I said, I don't agree to be a person. I don't consent to being a person. It is against my will to be called a person. I cannot be coerced into being a person. Where's your evidence that I am a person? And conversely, where's your evidence that I'm not a man? So again, these are like, say, methods to try to get out from their kangaroo court jurisdiction through challenging this in person jurisdiction, and then also again the roles that are played. That my understanding again is whenever a judge says, "Oh, is Mr. Smith here?" and then if the moment Mr. Smith utters the words yes, that Mr. Smith has given the court in personam jurisdiction. So the correct way you're supposed to answer it, my understanding, is something like, I am here on this matter, and then you go from that point forward, but you never admit that you are that person, or you distinguish that you are not the trustee, that you are the beneficiary, and that you're the living man, or for my wife, she's the living woman. So that would be another way to say, maybe get some resolution possibly, but I don't hold much hope or faith in that because of their track record. They have a track record of basically violating every single statute that we have cited, especially the one. There's getting back to this, just to circle the wagons on this one briefly again, is that we did an extensive motion to have the grand jury reconvene. We had that right, because we were never given reasonable, adequate notice. And we had no less than 3 judges, Floyd, no less than 3. They all lied on the record. I've documented everything, and I've documented everything under the penalty of perjury. I basically said my motions. The judge lied about this, this other judge lied about that, and the third judge lied about this, that they all lied. because they did not want to let us have the grand jury reconvene. That shows you what vindictive and psychopathic criminals we're dealing with. I mean, these are it's like the scum of the earth, right? I mean, the worst of the worst.
Yeah, they're sick individuals. They're depraved, wicked, evil. Absolutely.
Right.
I've witnessed it time again. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could go on my own stories, just one after another that are just appalling. That's why I was so readily eager to jump in with the Texas State Assembly, because I'm hearing all these people that have experienced the corruption and understand that it's a corrupt government and that it needs to change. So I was all in with all of them. Yeah, let's change this thing. And then of course, Anna von Reich's assemblies are never going to go anywhere, but that's a whole nother separate issue. But yeah, it's sad what's going on in these courts, especially for folks like yourself, where we're dealing with children that really don't quite grasp the enormity of everything that's happening around them, even if they can function, especially with CPS taking kids out of the custody and guardianship of the parents and putting them with as we know, some of these placement homes that they put these children in are questionable at best, if not detrimental to the child's welfare. Yeah, it's horrible. Anything else that you can that you have a question or you'd like to present to everyone?
Yes, just this would be the last thing, kind of like in closing, Floyd, is just to, my wife and I have mulled this over on every conceivable facet you could possibly imagine. And so one of the other facets we came across is to try to make the prosecutor's decision what's called socially unpopular. So we would use the influence of the public, in other words, the viewers, to say to your viewers and to send an email to the prosecutor to basically say, look, these are innocent parents. What you're doing is dead wrong. You need to drop your bogus charges, something to that effect. In other words, however they would want to word it in their heart, because I mean, as God is our witness, we didn't do anything wrong. So
yeah, let me address that. That would be called an amicus curiae brief or curiae brief. So people want to file a amicus brief in with the court that you have some type of tangible testimony related to this. Don't just send one that oh, in my opinion y'all need to not charge these folks. Back it up with something substantial, some case law, cite what we've cited in this video, comparable cases in your jurisdiction where something similar or alike has happened that you can present, maybe a newspaper article, a snippet from your local news station addressing something similar like this, anything that would be beneficial. So I will do some more videos with them as well as we progress. Probably won't be on a weekly basis, but yeah, I'm like I said, I'm here to help anybody and everybody that I can. I'm not huge. I don't have 1 million subscribers, but hey, just that one person may be able to be the linchpin to change everything in your life. So hopefully we can connect with that entity out there, and I'll put all the information again in the description below as far as their contact information, the case numbers. You can go look up yourself. Basically, I'm just going to copy and paste majority of the email that you sent me in the description, and I'll leave out some sensitive information that shouldn't be in there, just to give them the ability to dig in for themselves if they want to assist with you in this endeavor. Anything else before I close?
Yeah, just the only thing to say is for all the viewers out there, if you're parents especially, if you help us, you're helping yourselves, because this is a landmark case. We've been told the same. The reason being is this gets into who has the rights to make medical decisions for their children. does a fictionary state, whether, insert the name of your state. In our case, it would be, in this case, it'd be like, does the state of Nevada, a fictitious entity that only exists in the minds of men and women, does some fictitious entity have the right to dictate to parents the medical decisions over their children, especially given the fact that you've got this NRS 126.036, which we showed earlier, and you showed earlier, that the parents have the fundamental right to the care, custody, and management of their child. So are they not completely out of line on that single NRS alone, right?
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming on. And no, I did. They have not cloned Steve Jobs. And I
I
know,
have to find this in your classes. I have them tucked away somewhere. We moved, so I got them somewhere.
yeah, you should like be an impersonator. You should, make a little something doing that. Yeah, Steve Jobs impersonator. I'm sure if you showed up at an Apple store with a black turtleneck or something, people would be like, "Oh, what?" At the resurrection of Steve Jobs. All right. Again, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. We will stay in touch. We will hopefully get a resolution for you. Everybody out there, if you want to reach me, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com, fearlessfloydshow.com is my website. Again, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll get with you soon. And
Thank you so much. Thank you much.
you want this? You want me to post this tonight, or you want me to post it tomorrow on my noon show?
That's good.
Tonight?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Doesn't matter to me. I'll hit it up tonight. I'll post it, in the next 15 minutes, as soon as it processes.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Floyd. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And I am back. And there you go. Lovely couple going through some traumatic times, currently residing in Arkansas, dealing with the state of Nevada. You can help them out. Please reach out to them. All the information will be in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and blow this video up today. If you can help, please reach out. Their email, case numbers, description below. Again, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell. I mentioned share this video with, anybody and everybody that's in Nevada, Arkansas, or going through similar circumstances. I try to walk, everybody through the process of exactly what they need to do, playing by their rules with their toys and their sandbox. As you guys are seeing, they're ignoring all this other stuff that we're, which they should be paying attention to, but they're not. So we have to move on and play with their toys. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be doing some more videos today. I have 3 more people lined up back to back to back to back. So we'll see how that goes this evening. Actually, I've got an email from one. I have to okay. All right. Thank you for being here again. Appreciate it. Got a new sponsor coming up. Another one. So look forward to that. Thank you for being here. Have a safe and happy weekend.